Hello, my name is Bob Haggerty.
Where and when were you born?
Brooklyn, New York, 1919.
So how old are you right now?
How old am I? On February 25th, 2009, I was starting my 100th year on this planet.
Do you feel like you're 100?
Say it again.
Do you feel like you are 100?
No. What am I doing? Oh, I'm just living away my retirement at Indian River Estates in Vero Beach, Florida. But I was in a division that went off to the wars very early. We were sent to the British Solomon Islands, where the Seabees were building an airstrip because they were worried about the Japanese invading Australia.
So could you just talk to me about your experience with Chesty Puller? Where did you first meet Chesty Puller?
Well, Chesty was my battalion commander when the most memorable part of that was really after the Guadalcanal had been captured. The Naval Intelligence Service was worried that the Japs would overwhelm us because in the original invasion, the Japanese had come up from an island nearby, and I wasn't there. I know I'm listening to people that the Japs came up with their warships, and they turned on the searchlights to pick up the American cruisers. The American cruisers weren't really in battle position, and they were sunk. It was a very bad day for the United States Navy. They called that Savo Island place, what they call it, battleship, what they call it.
Are you talking about Iron Bottom Sound?
They talked about graveyard for battleship graveyard. When we left Solomon Islands, we went to Guadalcanal, and at that time, the High Command wanted to find and destroy what had been the Japanese headquarters. And Louis Puller and his regiment led the way in that subsequent assault, and they were ambushed. And he survived. I could hear him giving orders. I was there. He had entered the jungle in a big opening, and I was not in his unit, but I had tagged along. I had been in a secret unit, the 1st Marine Beach Jumpers, composed of men seeking immediate overseas duty, extra hazardous duty. I didn't volunteer for that, but I was picked to be part of the 1st Marine Beach Jumper Unit, which actually was disbanded. It was written into the orders for the island after Guadalcanal, and then taken out. So I was really not I was not in the original landing at Guadalcanal. We came in, as I say, from the Solomon Islands, where we trained and made ready for Guadalcanal, but it had already started. But then when the action started to find the Japanese headquarters, Louis Puller led the regiment, and he walked into an ambush. I was with him, but not part of his unit. But I was there. And he went in one hole in the jungle, and I went in the other. And I was pinned down by machine guns right over my head. I was waiting for that guy till he pressed his machine gun, and I'd be a dead man. But he never did depress it. And finally, they ran out of ammunition, and that thing ended. So that was the last thing I did with Chesty Puller. But BJU-1 was disbanded, and I was just left without a unit. But I tagged along with Louis Puller when he entered that jungle ambush.
Could you tell me more about the ambush?
Well, it was very serious. A captain was killed, and I became that captain. That's when I had command of that company from whose commanding officer had been killed in that ambush. And that's when I took over that company.
And tell me about your responsibilities as a company commander.
Oh, nothing. Was it? I went to the infantry school. When I got home from Guadalcanal the first time, and I sent to the infantry school, where their motto was "Follow me," a glorious motto, "Follow me." So I followed Chesty Puller. Although, as I say, when he was in that hole, I wasn't in his unit, but I was with it. And I went in a separate entrance into that ambush where I was visible to the enemy, and then I was pinned down by machine gun fire while Chesty was handing out orders down 100 yards away.
Can you talk to me more about what kind of leader Chesty Puller was? I mean, you knew him personally.
Well, of course, fearless. He went into that ambush. Follow me. He went in, and a lot of guys were killed, including the company commander. And I later took over that company commander because I had been in Marine Beach Jumper Unit Number 1, which was disbanded, well, after a demonstration that was not very effective because we didn't have the aircraft rescue boats, which had radar. And the beach jumpers were supposed to be in these aircraft rescue boats playing records of the ship unloading. That was to deceive the Japs. During the early part of the war, they had used against the tank forces of the Germans in North Africa. The Africa Corps, Hitler's Africa Corps, has swept across North Africa almost unimpeded. And why they thought the beach jump unit was great or could do things was really unjustified by the record.
Thank you for explaining that. Going back to your time as a company commander, there was an incident in October of 1942 when your battalion, Chesty Puller's battalion, was spread out over an area from the Manukau River to Bloody Ridge. And that's the time that you got the Silver Star.
Bloody Ridge was early, before I even got there.
I know what you're saying, but there was a second battle in that area about the same time you got the Silver Star, when all the Japanese rushed your lines. Could you talk to us about that?
Well, the Japanese landed, and because they knew that the Navy was weak, they landed from transports. I could see the 3 transports landing. One of them was hit by a bomb from the Marine Corps flying unit, and it beached. But they beached that regiment, and then they came marching across the jungle to meet us. And that's when we annihilated that entire regiment. And that's when I was decorated for that.
So could you go into more detail, please, about that actual battle? What do you remember about the Japanese attack, and what were you doing?
Well, the Japanese came. They charged in. They thought we'd fade away. But we were ready for them. They came out of the jungle in little bits. We had a machine gun on the right, and as those Japanese soldiers came after us, that machine gun was knocking them down. And that's when we destroyed that enemy regiment when I was there. I was there and had become a company commander when Marine BJU number 1 was disbanded. So instead of being with BJU 1, I took over that company. I can't remember what name it was, but we annihilated a Japanese regiment that had landed. They didn't even have supporting naval forces. The Navy was so weak, and just knew that. And they came in on transports without naval support, and unloaded and attacked. And I was there. Well, of course, Puller had led that assault into the jungle, and I was with him, but on a little 100 yards away, where the machine gun was directed at me, because I went in a different hole from Puller. But
the ambush that you're talking about, is that the same one when Buck Rogers was killed? Is that the same ambush?
when who was killed?
Buck Rogers?
No. But, well, Buck Rogers got involved later when, again, 1-7, that was my unit, the 1st Battalion of the 7th Marines. When we were picked, naval intelligence knew that the Japanese planning to make a landing on Guadalcanal. This is it. The 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, was sent out to meet them. We had a real battle there. We defeated that force that landed.
Could you talk about the battle?
Well, on that 1-7, I was in the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, which we had been picked in the first effort to find the British, the Japanese headquarters. I led a group from the Marine Beach Jumper Unit. Buck Rogers was in the weapons division of the 1st Marine Division. And they were part of this unit. And they bought the 81 millimeter mortars. And they tried them out. And they discovered, terrible thing, they discovered that the ammunition for mortars was little packets of cloth. And depending on how many packets you loaded, how far the mortar shell went. Buck Rogers was with the 81 millimeter mortar group, and on this way to intercept the Japanese landing, they tried out the 81 millimeter mortar, and they found out that the dampness had affected the ammunition so much that the mortars didn't go as far as they were supposed to go. And Chesty Puller was almost killed on that foray when they tried out the 81 millimeters and found out that those weapons, the driving force in Guadalcanal was wet, and so those rockets didn't go as far as they were supposed to. And my weapons company men used 60 millimeter mortars, and they were short, and we killed some of our own men. And I was then sent home, in effect. on account of that, we killed our own men with mortars. The weapons people have never understood what the climate might do to the little packets that propelled the mortar, which they got wet, and the mortar shell almost killed Chesty Fuller. He was wounded on that foray. I was right behind them. And my own men, with their 60-millimeter mortars, were short, and we killed some of our own men. And I was sent back to the United States as a loser. After that episode, I'll never forget it. When we got out to meet this landing 30 miles or so off the coast, they came walking through. The Japs there, they came walking through with the guns at the ready, looking for us, looking for me. But I ducked into the jungle, took out my .45 and waited for them to come. But they never came after me. So I survived. But I was sent home, as I say, because of that mistake. Or not the mistake. The fact that the weapons people, that when they loaded a shell in the Navy, they know it was going to go 10 miles. But they had no idea what the weather would do to mortar shells. But we annihilated that group. They came after us, and they dribbled out of the jungle, but we killed them all as they dribbled out. And that's when I got the Silver Star.
And so, can you take me through, after you came back to the United States, how did you end up going to Guam and Iwo Jima?
Well, Iwo Jima was done pursuant to the Air Force. The Air Force was planning the bombing of Japan, and they were looking for a place for where the bombers might be hurt coming back. And so they wanted Iwo Jima as a landing field for damaged B-29s. So they didn't have to limp all the way back to the island Timor, where they were stationed, right near Guam. That was the big strategic move, Iwo Jima, by the Air Force to have a landing place for wounded B-29s. And the B-29 people called that airstrip the 3rd Marine Division airstrip. Even though Iwo Jima, there were a lot of divisions in the fight for Iwo Jima.
And can you tell me about your specific role during the battle? What were you doing during the Battle of Iwo Jima?
I wasn't doing anything but leading my men. I led them into the jungle in the other hole. Chesty Puller went in one hole, I was in the other with my men. Paul O'Neill from Worcester, the father of my wife, Mary O'Neill, Paul O'Neill, he didn't know about the Red Hand of O'Neill. What happened was the son-in-law of the king was killed, and his command was a small island, and the Marine Corps made a target. The first guy who came after it and put his hand on the beach would win that island. And my commanding, he could see he was losing that race. He cut his hand off. He threw it on the beach. So he was the first man. He won that thing. That's the bloody hand of O'Neill. The coat of arms, you could say, of the O'Neill family. The red hand of O'Neill blooding. His left hand, his right hand threw that thing on the screen. So he won that race, but lost his hand.
It's quite a story.
The Japanese landed their forces. They unloaded their ships, marched through the jungle to attack our position.
I understand that. I just wanted to get a better idea. You all were expecting the attack as a company, as you being the company commander. What were you doing when the Japanese were rushing your lines? How were you directing your different platoons?
I was sitting in my command post, that's all. I'll never forget at a command post, a Japanese soldier, we could hear him at night, and the Browning automatic rifle that fired at him and hit him. So when morning broke, we found this guy. He'd been wounded. He made a tourniquet, and he was alive. waiting to be shot dead. And it was funny. Here we are, a bunch of Marines, 6 or 7, would be looking down at a guy who's been wounded and waiting to be shot. It was laughable. We laughed at the guy being so frightened with a whole bunch of us standing over him. So when he saw us laugh, he knew he was going to be killed. And I escorted him later to headquarters of the 1st Division, where he was ultimately killed. The Marine Beach Jumper unit was oversold. When we did the demonstration, all of the generals in the South Pacific were there to see it, except General MacArthur. The Marines had it in from General MacArthur.
There was an incident where a Marine died in your arms?
Well,
do you remember where that was or what happened?
the Marines, the Japs made a landing, a counterattack, and 1-7 was sent out to meet them. And we met them. I slaughtered them.
During that attack, did your company have any casualties?
No. Well, my messenger was killed by their sniper. A sniper was looking for me, and he killed my messenger who was sitting next to me. He died virtually in my arm because a Japanese shell, 25-unit shell, small, but it pierced an artery. So he died of strangulation, that is to say, blood. He lost his blood virtually in my arms.
Do you remember his name?
What's that?
Do you remember his name?
Do I remember his name? No, I don't remember his name.
But he was the only one from your company killed during that attack?
I was the only one in my company acting like a leader. I was the company commander.
Thanks for the tip about that. If you have any more stories like that, like the guy in his arms, please do say, because he said that I could use it. I mean, he said it very well. I don't mean to keep harping about the same battle, but this was a very important battle when you guys stopped the Japanese advance, the Japanese counterattack. Could you tell me, what do you remember about the defensive positions that you guys set up before the Japanese came? You know, like the barbed wire and everything. Could you tell me about that?
The Japanese landed. We saw them land. We knew they were going to march to meet us. And we were in battle array, that's all. We were waiting for them to come. And they came. They thought they would overwhelm us. But they made a mistake. They didn't realize they were in the jungle. They couldn't overwhelm us. They dribbled out of the jungle. We killed them, they dribbled out.
How long would you say that battle went on for when the Japanese kept advancing?
That was like one night, one day.
Yeah. And how many Japanese would you say, roughly, were killed just in your company's area?
A Japanese regiment. The Japs picked a regiment to come back and take over Guadalcanal. A hand-picked regiment. And they came after us. And they attacked them, we killed them.
But that regiment was spread out over everyone's companies, but in front of your area.
Oh, well.
Was it hundreds of Japanese or?
Well, it was a thin line across all of Guadalcanal. There was a thin line.
So how many men were under your command when you were a company commander?
Oh, maybe 150.
And could you please talk about the structure of the unit? You know, what men had what weapons and that kind of thing?
Well, we were just sitting in the jungle. We knew they were coming. We were waiting for them, and they came. They came looking for us. This is 1-7, the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. That was really the one, the unit I was in, the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines.
Sir, that day or that night the Japanese got to your positions, it was a very dark night and it was raining. Could you tell me, you know, with it being so dark, how were you all able to see the Japanese as they attacked?
There was no trouble seeing them because they were walking right at us. Pickett's charge, they called it. Pickett's charge. They spread out and came to attack us, and we slaughtered them. That was really the end of the Japanese effort on land.
So the next morning, could you talk about what you saw in front of your position?
Hundreds of dead Japs. I didn't want to go down looking at them. my men were looting the dead Japs, looking for souvenirs. And I didn't want to come down and interfere with that. But I did look at it. I had to look at it.
So when I was doing some research about this battle, it's my understanding that before the Japanese counterattacked, when you guys were setting up your defense positions, a lot of you went to Henderson Field and you took machine guns off of the planes that weren't being used. Does that ring a bell?
No. I tell you, the commanding general who was going to take us onto Japanese soil, he was looking for problems. He was making sure that he was 100% ready. And he had all the battalion commanders worried that he might be fired if they didn't do anything. He was very pleased when I established for my company a night action. He was very pleased that my men were ready for a night action. Like he made me the commanding officer of a demonstration of what they were supposed to do when we landed on Japan. I was. He picked my company to do that demonstration, which was just to be ready. But we had a machine gun out on the flank, a Browning heavy machine gun, water-cooled.
So, in all of your time in combat, I mean, when you were overseas, most of your combat was on Guadalcanal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Did you go to New Britain after that, at Cape Gloucester? Did you fight at Cape Gloucester or Peleliu?
I'm not understanding that.
Why he did it because he got sent home. Actually, it's just where the unit went after.
During your time on Guadalcanal, what would you say was the closest you personally got to the Japanese infantry during a firefight?
Well, they landed, they came after us, and we were in shape.
Yeah, I wasn't having the same. You know what I'm saying? Has he ever talked to you about actually engaging the Japanese? Thanks.
Sir, what weapons did you use in combat?
What? Nothing but light machine guns and 60mm mortars. That's all the company has.
I should clarify. What weapons did you personally use in combat? What did you carry with you?
My 45. I was waiting for them to come in. I ducked into the jungle. I was waiting for them to come in after me, but they never came in after me.
But besides that incident, were there other times that you had to almost use the 45?
No. No, that was the only time. That was the only time. That was a big final effort.
Could you do me a favor, and could you please describe the living conditions on Guadalcanal? I've never been to Guadalcanal. I mean, what was it like, the conditions?
Hot as hell. The dream of getting a strawberry soda. It was so hot. At the end, we were in Guadalcanal, where it was not muddy. It was sandy. Well, you could play basketball there.
Could you talk to me about your experiences with the diseases on Guadalcanal, like malaria or beriberi or the tropical ulcers? Did you remember anything about malaria?
Well, we took the malaria medicine, which turns green. When Jack Kennedy was going home from Guadalcanal, and I was in the PT boat with him. He was green with the anti-malarial medicine. I took it and he took it. He was green.
It's called Adabrin.
Adabrin. That's Adabrin. That's what it was.
Was he a nice guy, Kennedy?
What?
Was Kennedy a nice guy?
Well, of course, Kennedy was in a separate PT unit. He was in PT. They were based at Tulagi. And after the war, when I met him with my father was a Democratic leader of Brooklyn. And he went to the Democratic National Club, where Kennedy came looking for votes when he was running for president. And I asked him if he remembered me. He didn't remember me, but he remembered the name of the guy whose motorboat took him across Skylost Channel, I call it. Skylost Channel. Skylark Channel. That was That was the space between Savo Island and Guadalcanal, where all the ships were sunk, and called it Battleship Cemetery, something like that.
So just going back to Guadalcanal, do you remember a man in your company named Joe Goebel?
Who?
Joe Goebel.
No, Joe the Goog.
Joe Goebel.
No, I don't remember anyone. Charlie, well, my close friend was Bob DeGuglielmo. Bob the Goog. They called him Bob the Goog.
And there was another man named Roy Pugh.
Oh,
Roy Pugh. Does that ring a bell?
no.
That's fine.
Ask about Basil.
Oh yeah. When Basil got the Medal of Honor, that's the same day your dad, or you got the Silver Star.
Ask him if you know.
Could you talk to me about your memories of John Basilone?
My memories of what?
John Basil.
John Basilone?
I remember the name.
Basilone, he got the Medal of Honor the same day you got the Silver Star.
They're both from New York.
Yeah, he was the guy had the Browning machine gun. He was later killed. In the 1st Division.
He was killed on Iwo Jima.
It was a terrible battle that the 1st Division was in. It took a long time.
But did he talk about? Has he talked to him about him in any more detail?
No, just that he knew him. He said they were in different companies.
Yeah, he was in D Company, Basil.
Right.
But
they're both from New York, so they knew each other, I guess.
maybe,
That's
or you
something.
think before the war?
No, well, maybe it was something they were going, but he was an officer now.
He was killed, Balsamo. The next battle, early on.
I don't want to argue with him.
I think he,
Well, I came at night, you know. I remember the division commander didn't come down to see the dead Japs. And I didn't want to go down and because my men were loading the Japanese corpses for souvenirs. One of them got a sword. One of my officers got a Japanese commander's sword. They kept the, well, he was a leader. He was a leader, and he led his men to death.
Sure, Could you talk to me more about your interactions with Chesty Puller. You know, after Guadalcanal, you still had a relationship with him.
Never had any relationship after Guadalcanal.
My understanding is that he would come to you for help with you know, you being a lawyer or you being an attorney
After the war.
after the war. Do you remember meeting him after the war?
No. No.
He did talk about that.
Right.
He can't remember. He came to his office where they had it.
Do you remember Chesty Puller? He came to your office
At Dewey Valentine.
at Dewey Valentine.
Well, Chesty Puller, as I say, it's kind of the second phase of Guadalcanal. When after the Japs had lost, they decided to take him back. And that was when 1-7 went out to meet them, where they landed.